when I get in the car, all we're listening to is Ozuna, J Balvin, Maluma, obviously a lot of Rosalia.
Alejandro Villanueva, welcome, bienvenidos, mi amigo, a El Snap. We're here with one mission and one mission only, to get Americans to vote, and especially nuestra gente, la gente latina de este país. And you're in a unique position here to explain to our viewers just why it's so important to vote, not just this year, but every year in every election. Your story, very well documented. Like many Spanish speakers in this country, you're kind of a citizen of the world, if you will, my friend. How does a kid growing up in Spain and Belgium become such a proud American?
Well, I think this might shock a lot of Americans by saying that when you grow up in a country like Spain or Belgium, you realize just how divided everyone is. They're divided in the culture, divided in the history, the values, and even the languages. I think Spain has 6 official languages.
Right.
And so you realize just how America tells a really good story. The story of the American dream, that you're responsible sort of for your own success in many ways. And I feel like it's our responsibility to protect that American dream, whatever version is it that we have, and however we interpret the American dream. And one of the ways of doing that is through our vote.
I think a lot of people don't realize that people fight for that, to be able to be here, to be able to have that freedom, and to be able to make the change from within. Like you mentioned, it lies on us, on our shoulders. It's not just our right, it's our duty and our responsibility as citizens of this country. But let's talk a little bit about the idea of biculturalism, because I think many Hispanics, many Latinos, and immigrants in general sometimes feel like they have to sacrifice a bit of their own identity in order to really become American, trying to assimilate to the American cultures, when really, when I look at it, it's such a tapestry of everyone who's come to this country to really build it. You're as American as apple pie, even though you're also as Spanish as una tortilla española. So how does that work? What is it about the U.S. that really allows for those worlds to mesh?
Yeah, so my dad always told me, when I came, he said, always take the best, out of each culture, whatever you feel is best, adopt it. And he came by a couple of years later, and I was driving in a Ford F-150, with camel seat covers, listed the country, and he said, "Son, I think you took that a little too far, too far." But I think that your identity is something very difficult that you have to understand, and it's very challenging, especially as you become independent and you try to determine who you're going to be. From my experience, I feel like it's not as difficult as you might make it seem, because in this country, you can be whoever you want to be, and you tell your own story. You have to put aside all the preconceived notions about what it is to be Colombian, Venezuelan, Spanish, Catalan, Cuban. You can come to this country and you can be yourself. I feel like there's a lot of great values, a lot of culture, art, that you can pick up from different groups of people in this country. And I think that diversity is something that is very valued. So if you come here and you love, I've always loved Spanish music, flamenco music, but you all of a sudden come to the United States, to Miami, and you start listening to reggaeton, and all of a sudden, your kids are coming out of the shower and getting their hair like Anuel, and all they listen to is Bad Bunny. It's not such a bad thing. You have to enjoy everything about this country, everything that it has to offer, and at the same time give to this country everything that you have to offer as well.
I mean, the point you made about having like your true identity is, I grew up in Miami in South Florida, and I know, I'll keep it real for a second, Miami is not like the rest of the United States. It's very much its own little pocket, but you would go to different areas there and you knew, all right, los colombianos are living here. Or you go to Doral and Venezuela, bien presente. Or you go to Little Havana and it's the Cubanos. Or you go to La Veinte and it's all Dominicans. So it really holds true that you can still latch on, and not just that, but really share your own culture from other countries once you arrive in the United States. So I love that aspect of it. Also, Rosalia, who is from Spain and is killing it in the reggaeton world too. So a little mashup there of some of the bicultural sort of influences in our music too. Now, I think Latinos often live in two worlds, right? This is what we've been talking about, inside their heads, and also quite literally in the way they interact with their families. In one language, we switch over to set another set of norms when we're out and about, sort of like in American culture. What does that look like for you, and how do you navigate the mix of cultures there? What language do you speak with your family, for example?
I speak Spanish to my kids only, and,
Okay.
and I'll do
I
it
love it.
when I get home. Well, obviously, my mom would never forgive me, and my family would never forgive me if they didn't speak Spanish. But I don't want to put that burden on them. I want to put it on myself, so that my kids don't have to make these tough decisions. And by the time they're old enough, it will be something seamless. Also, I've heard from many immigrants in this country that usually when you come here, you want your kids to speak to you in English so that you can practice and become an English speaker. A lot of Italians in New York City, they only want their grandkids to speak to them in English. But like you said, there's a lot of pockets in the United States where Spanish is becoming so predominant, and it is such a beautiful language, and it has a lot of art that comes along with it. You mentioned Rosalia. There's a lot of, Spanish people have a lot of pride for their music, a lot of pride for the literature and the poetry, for their food. And so I have to expose my kids to everything, but ultimately I'll decide, I let them decide, how they want to call themselves. His name is Alejandro. I don't know if it's something that he's going to, they call me Big Al here in Pittsburgh. So
Big Al.
Yeah, it's terrible for my mom. My mom suffers every single time people call me Big Al, but I'll let them make the decisions. When I get in the car, all we're listening to is Ozuna, J Balvin, Maluma, obviously a lot of Rosalia and a lot of the Spanish music that comes out. But Spanish is a very important thing. But more than anything is their own decision to become who they want to be. And obviously, the mom side of the family is as American as they can get. So they'll learn, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ways of doing things, and they'll decide when they want to grow up, who they want to be called, how they want to be called, and the language they want to speak.
I can only picture your mom, who gave you this like perfect telenovela name, like Alejandro Villanueva, and then folks are calling you Big Al. She's like, please stop it.
It's a very difficult name to pronounce, though. I found it through the years. When I got on this call, people call me Ale. Ale is what everybody's always called me, but for Americans, it's incredibly difficult to pronounce.
Now, I want to pivot for a second to something you hear about more and more in every election cycle, but especially this year, and that's the importance of the Latino and the Hispanic vote. So I have a few stats, and I want to get them right, so I have my paper here. Very important. But here we go. According to Pew Research, a record 32 million Hispanics are projected to be eligible to vote in 2020, which, by the way, we're just days away at this point, making up 13% of all U.S. eligible voters. First election that Latinos, the largest ethnic minority voting bloc. So listen to this, 43% of the electorate in New Mexico, it's 30% in California and Texas, 24% in Arizona, 20% in Florida. So huge chunks of the electorate in some of the most critical states. And it's being driven by the young voters, the young Latinos, those probably a lot of those voters who are voting for the first time, turning 18, 19 years old. 50% of the rate of increase in Hispanic voters in 2018 compared to 2014 was more than double of the rate of increase of the total voters. But Pew Research recently found that only 54% rather of Latino registered voters say they're extremely motivated to vote this year, compared to 69% overall. So Alejandro, help me out here. We need to close this gap. ¿Cómo motivamos a nuestra gente? Dígales algo, por favor. Dile algo que salgan to go vote.
Well, what I always tell people is that you don't want to put your fate in the hands of someone else. You don't want to be those diligent voters that wake up early and they're tracking, whatever it is that they want the government to do to be the ones to decide that fate. But I think that more than anything, for the Latinos and for Hispanics in the United States, I feel like politics and getting familiar and educating yourself on what is it that you want for your country has to be a daily thing. You have to fight for your freedom. You have to fight for this way of life, and your vote has to represent that as well. Because if you don't, then someone else is going to make that decision for you.
It's insane. Listen, in 2016, in that election, over 100 million voting eligible Americans did not vote. They did not go to the polls. And to your point, it's not just about the presidential election. You have to make your voice heard in everything that's on the ballot, which affects your micro community, your local communities, the politicians that are making choices for you and your family and your community every single day. I think that's even the broader stroke situation that a lot of people don't see. It's not just about the top two people in the White House. It's about everything in between that trickles down. So what can we do about that? What are we doing about this voting initiative?
I think they can vote online. They can register to vote online. They can receive the mail-in ballot, and they can probably go to a lot of local places that are designated. I'm sure they have, COVID protocols as well to make sure that the elections happen as safely as possible.
All right, I'll do you one better. I'll give you even more details and a specific website, Alejandro. Perfect segue. On NFL.com/votes, we have everything you need right there, no matter what state you're in. 15 NFL stadiums are being used as voter registration, ballot drop-off, and even actual polling sites. You can register to volunteer there or at other polling sites as well. That's NFL.com/votes. Alejandro, do you have anything else to add?
Oh, thank you so much, Silvia, for having me on the show.
You are a rock star. Thank you for everything. And listen, undefeated over there in Pittsburgh. Don't think I wasn't going to add that and mention that in. I see you guys.
No diga nada, no lo vayas a estropear.
I will not be jinxing you. Thanks, Alejandro.